Hi, I'm Pam, and I'm here to talk about video games. The Metroidvania genre is one I love and talk about a lot on this channel. As with the last few years, many Metroidvanias released in 2025, and I played 13 of them. Here are my thoughts on every 2025 Metroidvania I played, in order of release date, as well as where I'd rank them on a tier list. BladeChimera was developed by Team Ladybug and released in January. You play the demon hunter Shin, exploring a dangerous and demon-infested Osaka. You team up with a demon sword to uncover your forgotten past and regain your lost skills. Team Ladybug has some striking pixel art, especially the character sprites, and as a run and gun, this game feels okay. However, the level design and overall map really hold this one back. The game is filled with long hallways and spongy enemies that just love to knock you back with every attack, often knocking you right out of the room so they reset when you re-enter it. The world is just very uninteresting, so this game lacks the exploration aspect that I look for in the genre. I'd say the boss fights are the standout part of the game. They look great and do have some cool abilities, though they can mostly be brute forced. One novel thing this game adds is the ability to teleport to anywhere in the map at any time, making backtracking a thing of the past. Surprisingly, I found this to be too much, and never having to run anywhere took me out of the world even further. Some backtracking is necessary for the genre, and the map should be interesting enough to make it worthwhile. Sadly, I found this game to be lacking in most respects. Too much focus was put on the least interesting things: poor dialogue, too many items, repetitive side quests, and not enough on making it a fun world to explore. I rank this a C. Somber Echoes was developed by Rock Pocket Games and released in January. You are a Drestia, recently revived upon a giant space vessel which has been invested with horrors from another dimension. You need to prevent your twin sister from further unraveling the world. I love the setting of this game, which combines figures from ancient Greek mythology with the sci-fi setting and cosmic horror. It looks gorgeous and just oozes atmosphere. This is a game that is focused on exploration and acrobatics. Though there is a fairly robust combat system involving ranged attacks, parries, and melee combos, with various weapons that can be upgraded, there aren't an abundance of enemies. I had the most fun when I was figuring out how to reach every nook and cranny of the ship. The standout ability here is the Ether Lantern, which sort of combines a double jump and dash, and allows you to chain these moves together, propelling yourself through the air or around corners. You need to figure out how to use this ability with the environment around you to reach the most hard-to-get upgrades and collectibles. Though there aren't a ton of boss fights, they all look amazing. They're surreal monstrosities, and most will require you to make the most of your movement skills just as much as your weapons. Somber Echoes combines a fascinating setting and narrative with amazing movement abilities and rewarding exploration. I had a lot of fun with this one, and I give it an A. Ender Magnolia Bloom in the Mist was developed by AdGlobe and Livewire and released in January. In this dark fantasy world, you play Lilac, an attuner who is capable of controlling artificial beings known as homunculi. These homunculi join Lilac, becoming her attacks and ways of interacting with the world around her. I really enjoyed the first game in this series, Ender Lilies. This game improves on it in a number of little ways that all add up to an incredible experience. As you explore, you'll be collecting new homunculi, leveling them up to gain new skills, and finding new equipment, relics, and items. You can customize your combat skills to your own preferences by equipping different things and focusing on different skills for melee, ranged, and special attacks. The world has a hazy, hand-painted look with a variety of unique and gorgeous biomes. The map in particular has improved immensely from the first game, making it very easy to keep track of areas not yet explored or where you can use new abilities. One could even argue the map makes it too easy. The boss fights are challenging and impressive and had me dodging all over the place, and the whole game just feels very good to play. I played through this whole game in a weekend when I was sick, and I just could not put it down until I had completed 100% of what the game had to offer me. I give Ender Magnolia an A. Guns of Fury was developed by Gelato Games and released in February. You play Vincent Fury, a special operative out to infiltrate a secret facility. Honestly, story doesn't really matter here. What matters is running and gunning and blowing shit up. This is basically Metal Slug as a Metroidvania, and it is a lot of fun. There's a lot of focus on different guns and items, and though that's not usually my favorite style, the weapons all feel quite different, and when you get an upgrade, it feels like an upgrade. The thing I love most is that so much of the environment is destructible. It is always satisfying to see things blow up in this incredibly crisp art style. Boss fights are over the top and fun, as you'll be fighting tanks, helicopters, and giant mechs. The combat feels good and is fairly forgiving due to the amount of healing items you have access to. There are some interesting upgrades and ways of getting around. I particularly liked the addition of a mech suit that you need to find a way to use to get to access new areas. I enjoyed exploring this game and increasing my arsenal of both weapons and abilities. I do think the actual map could have been a bit better in terms of keeping track of things, and more fast travel points would have been nice. That said, this game was a blast. Literally. I give it a B. Twilight Monk was developed by Aquatic Moon Games and released in March. You play Raziel, the last descendant of a group of ancient kung fu warriors, and need to collect the 3 rings of Triskelion. This game combines 2D combat and platforming, top-down overworld areas, and JRPG-like towns into a very cozy package. Cozy is how I felt playing this. The art style and colors are gorgeous. I love the thick black lines on everything, and looking at the UI makes me happy. Combat using a giant pillar feels weighty, and you can also use your weapon to block attacks or help you traverse the world by weighing down switches or giving you extra height. You get a variety of special attacks to use, as well as talismans to modify your strengths and summonable companions. As you explore and fight, you'll also be leveling up and gaining gold to buy consumables and other items. There is no on-demand healing in this game, meaning you're at the whims of finding food out in treasure chests or walls, and when you die, you lose any progress from the last save point. This was a sticking point for some, but it made sense to me. And while I found the map pretty, it could have used more functionality. Twilight Monk brings together a number of familiar elements from other 2D platformers, adventures, and JRPG, but it brings them all together in a very pleasing way. I give it a B. Mandragora: Whispers of the Witch Tree was developed by Primal Games Studio and released in April. You play an Inquisitor tasked with rooting out heretics, but soon find out you may be working for the baddies. This is the last Metroidvania that I played this year. When it first released, it didn't really catch my attention. It really looked more like a 2D Dark Souls. And it is that, but it's also awesome. You create your character from one of 6 classes. As you play, you'll be leveling up, gaining talent points to put into increasing stats or adding new effects, discovering new combat abilities, and finding and crafting tons of gear, potions, and more. The world is an absolute joy to explore. The different biomes look great, there are shinies lying around everywhere, treasure chests galore, keys to open new places, all supported by a very useful map and fast travel system. One thing that surprised me was how much I liked the story and the characters. I enjoyed talking to people out in the world, and I loved finding new vendors and setting them up at my base, being able to go to them for crafting as well as quests and story. The writing is really great, and the world feels much more alive than a typical Souls game. The new movement abilities you get to let you explore more are fairly limited in their number and their use, but I didn't mind. The map found plenty of other ways to be constantly revealing itself to me and make exploration and progress rewarding. Combat is challenging, especially some later boss fights, but also really enjoyable, and you can customize your playstyle to an incredible degree. I have one major complaint, and that is instant kill pits, especially when it's not always obvious what is a pit and what is just a long fall. That said, Mandragora was the surprise of the year for me. I could not put it down over the holidays, and I enjoyed my time with it immensely. This one joins the rare rank of my personal S tier. Chronicles of the Wolf was developed by Megami Games and released in June. This is a love letter to the Castlevania series, especially Simon's Quest, where you play Matteo Lombardo, hunting down the Beast of Gévaudan. If you're someone who wishes you were still living in the late 80s and think that all the good games were made decades ago, you should absolutely play this game. That's not me, though. As Matteo, you will be traversing the world, talking to people to get ideas on where to go, finding new equipment, sub-weapons, and even ghosts to help you on your way. The movement is slow and stiff. The first few hours were a real struggle for me, as they took place in uninteresting, long, linear levels. Matteo was weak, enemies hit hard, and save points were very far apart. Things take a real turn for the better when you find yourself in a castle, though. It's really fun to explore, way more interesting from a level design standpoint, full of secrets, items, and abilities to help you progress, and save points are more frequent. Every item you find truly feels important and useful, and the rate at which you discover them is satisfying. However, even though this middle part of the game satisfied me in terms of exploration, there are still design decisions that held everything back for me. In trying to emulate games from the late 80s, the controls feel clunkier than they need to, relying on only 2 face buttons rather than an entire modern gamepad. The map is also not at all useful. Can't zoom, can't mark it, almost nothing is marked or labeled, areas aren't differentiated. Chronicles of the Wolf has some great exploration and cool items to find, but overall relies entirely too much on nostalgia. A few modern conveniences would have gone a long way to increase my enjoyment of the game, but as it is, it's a C. Primal Planet was developed by Seething Swarm and released in July. You play a cave dweller fighting to protect his family amongst a dangerous world of predators, dinosaurs, and aliens. Together with your buddy Sino, the tiny dino, you need to brave this strange world, exploring, fighting, gathering resources, crafting, and getting stronger to take on the challenges ahead. This is a really charming game that tells an emotional story without any words. The combat and platforming are fairly simple but effective, and things are made more interesting with the crafting system and companions. You can find people out in the world who will teach you new things or join you on your travels. The world is fun to explore, the different biomes behave differently based on time of day and weather, and there's some great music here, especially underwater themes. I also really like the way you use torches to light up new areas and reveal new maps. Sometimes figuring out how to get a torch through water obstacles is a bit of a puzzle. There's a fairly simple co-op mode where a friend can take over and play as Sino. The map is my biggest sticking point here. Everything on it is so tiny. You can't mark it up, and you can only see a detailed zone map when you're in that zone. That, and a lack of fast travel options, can make backtracking more of a pain than it needs to be. Primal Planet is very cute. It does a good job of combining resource gathering, crafting, and action into a well-rounded experience, even if the map leaves something to be desired. I give it a B. Hollow Knight Silksong was developed by Team Cherry and released in September. Playing as Hornet, you explore the insect kingdom of Farloom, ascending to its peak and revealing its mysteries. Silksong takes many familiar things about Hollow Knight and reshapes, reinvents, and in many ways improves. The art and world design is divine. The narrative and mechanics meld together in a very cohesive way. There's more player agency in how you want to play, with different crests and tools that change your entire playstyle. Hollow Knight has been my number one Metroidvania for nearly a decade now, and now that Silksong is released, well, that hasn't changed. I love that Hornet is a character who actually talks. I care more about the story here than in its predecessor, and all the little bugs are adorable. Exploration is still a joy, and the map design is top-notch. Boss fights are complicated, challenging, some of them tell a lovely, usually sad story. But there were a few things that I didn't care for. The in-game economy was unnecessarily punishing, and the system for tool use encouraged farming, which I will always be against. Though bosses were incredibly designed, many of the most challenging parts of the game for me were locked-in combat rooms, which felt incredibly punishing and very rarely rewarding. What was rewarding, though, was exploration, finding all the secrets and platforming. Hornet is so quick, so agile, so airborne, and was a delight to move around. Silksong is an incredible follow-up to Hollow Knight, though I think there were a couple design decisions that made things more frustrating than they needed to be. I give it an A. Lone Fungus Melody of Spores was developed by Basti Games and released in November. You play as Greencap, out to save all of Mushkind from the mysterious spirit beast. You have a multi-directional whip to fight with, along with tons of sub-weapons and trinkets, towns to explore, and challenges to face. This game is a sequel, and I thought it made a lot of improvements over the first game, but also some changes which I didn't really care for. The pixel art is lower resolution here, but also way more colorful, with a ton more variety between the different biomes. Combat has more interesting bosses, and also brings new things to the table, like a pogo ability which debuffs enemies. Platforming is still challenging, but no longer makes me feel like I'm playing Finger Twister trying to pull off the moves. I really enjoyed exploring the world of Lone Fungus, and the map is very usable. My biggest complaint is that there's too much stuff in the game. Between different whips, sub-weapons, relics, armor, there was too much to even try it all out. And a lot of the time, since the map is quite open, when I got a new weapon, it was a downgrade from what I was currently using. A lot of the items are bought with currency, and I also found the economy overly punishing. Between all of the items to buy, and the fact that you need to pay twice for checkpoints, once to activate it, and once to turn it into a fast travel spot, I always felt broke. I think Lone Fungus Melody of Spores is a good game where platforming and exploration are the real standouts, while I do think it suffers from an overabundance of stuff that doesn't end up being that interesting or useful. I give it a B. Winds of Arcana Ruination was developed by Brood Games and released in November. You play Aaron, who is fighting terrible dangers to save his friends and uncover mysteries. Look, I don't like to call games rip-offs, and it bothers me when people call anything with hand-drawn art a Hollow Knight clone. But this game is so similar to Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown in both looks and mechanics, and inviting that comparison does it no favors. You wield swords, chakrams, and magic abilities as you platform through spinning spike wheels in deserts, forests, and dungeons. This game, sadly, just did not feel good to play. My sword would pass right through enemies and stone walls with no resistance, giving combat a complete lack of feedback or weight. Controls for platforming did not feel responsive enough for what it was asking of you, even at the very beginning of the game. I put Winds of Arcana down pretty quickly, so I'm not going to give it a ranking, but I did not like the time I spent with this game. Sliding Hero was developed by Silent Chicken and released in November. This is a top-down puzzle Metroidvania where you play Luca, who has been imprisoned in a 1700s Venetian villa and must escape. This game has a very novel concept and a very novel setting, brought to life with some appealing pixel art. I tried this game out because the concept is cool, even though I knew it wasn't going to be for me. I hate sliding block puzzles, and this is an entire game where you are the sliding block. But if you're not averse to sliding block puzzles and you're looking for a Metroidvania that is doing something different, it may be worth a look. While alternate control schemes like those found in Dandara, Leica, or Yoku's Island Express tend to be hit or miss for me personally, I do like seeing new ideas brought forth in the genre. Sliding Hero is not one I'm going to rank since I didn't play it enough, but it could be worth a look if you're looking for something different. Constance was developed by BTF and released in November. You play a paintbrush-wielding artist who is dealing with burnout and real-life issues and finds herself trapped in a colorful fantasy world she must escape from. All of her abilities have to do with paint, using her paintbrush to attack, cloning herself with paint for utility purposes, turning into paint to climb walls. I admire the commitment to being a game about making art, both in how every ability is used and in little things like how parts of the menu resemble a sketchbook. This is a platform-heavy game with lots of difficult optional sections for rewards. Even the bosses have platforming sections where you need to avoid damage before you get a chance to actually attack. The presentation is great, for everything except the map. The map is very bad. There's no indication of where you or anything else is in a particular area. It just shows a big box with any icons at the bottom. It's on the shorter side, which is fine, though I did find that when I finished the game, my completion percentage was surprisingly low. I was even missing a whole ability, the double jump. It never really gave me that yearning to explore it fully, rather just get to the end. The theming and presentation is really where Constance shines, and while I generally enjoyed my time with it, I was also kind of happy when it was over. I give it a B. Just like last year, I thought 2025 was a fantastic year for Metroidvanias. Silksong did not disappoint, and Mandragora surprised and delighted me. We got a variety of art styles and mechanics with some really fascinating worlds to explore. Let me know in the comments what your favorite Metroidvanias of the year are, and let me know which ones you're looking forward to this year. If you want to see more, check out my playlist of Metroidvania reviews. I do have full reviews of a number of games I talked about today. I have a Patreon, or you can become a channel member if you want to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.